Lalo, THR here. What's going down, everybody? I hope you're doing fantastic on this Monday evening. I'm down here in sunny SoCal where Wrestlemania Night 1, Night 2, and where Monday Night Raw, the Raw after Mania, is popping off right now as I record this. And I'm definitely gonna tune in to Raw. It's actually happening already. I got it recording, so it's all good. It's all good in the neighborhood. I gotta give my thoughts on a few things before I can indulge a little bit. Crazy news, guys. First and foremost, before I get to the said crazy news, let me apologize for the loud audio in the last podcast. It was kind of annoying, actually. I can't even listen to my own episode, my own podcast. It was just too loud. And I apologize. I don't know what causes the audio to come out so loud. I think I was just too hype because it was WrestleMania. Maybe I was just too hype. I don't know. But I'm gonna try to scale it back in this episode. See if it comes out a little smoother, a little less annoying. Guys, WWE is officially sold. WWE has been sold to Endeavor, and I'm gonna delve into that crazy news piece there for a whopping $9 billion. And of course, this is coming off of an incredible WrestleMania Night 1 and Night 2, the latter of which, Night 2 being kind of, you know, this WrestleMania was a tale of two cities, or rather a tale of two different types of tears that I shed. Because in Night 1, I shed tears of joy, tears of nostalgia, you know, seeing John Cena come out with the Make-A-Wish Kids, and then Rey Mysterio paying tribute to Eddie Guerrero in his entrance, hearing the Viva la Raza theme song, coming out in the lowrider with Snoop. It don't get no better. And then, of course, the cherry on top of the cake, seeing Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, man, capture the tag champs, dethroning the Usos, becoming the undisputed tag team champions. And they've been grinding for so long to get there. And to see it happen, it was, that kind of reminded me of Adam Page capturing the AEW title after scratching and clawing for 2 years, you know what I'm saying, in AEW. But then Night 2, it had me in tears, but for a different reason. Because when Shane McMahon was trying to do stuff that his body wasn't agreeing with. Let's just put it like that. He tried to do it. Oh, Lord. You know, that old spot, you know, where the guy does an Irish whip and then he goes down prone and then he comes up for that frog jump, you know, and his knee blew out on him, man. He like tore his ACL. And you've seen it right away, and poor Miz, this guy, I don't know what they paid the Miz, but I hope they gave him a stimulus check, because, I mean, you know, he got buried by Pat McAfee in Night 1, and then he was slated to get buried by Shane McMahon here in Night 2, and Shane McMahon... Shane McMahon buried himself. His body was like, we ain't doing all that. And Shane McMahon was rolling on the floor, didn't know. Miz looked like a deer caught in the headlights, didn't know what to do. And he was like, he was like pacing around the ring. Like he didn't know what to do. And I mean, I would be in the same... I would probably be doing the same thing if I was in his position, just kind of pacing around. Like, I probably would have started talking shit. You know, if I was the Miz, I would have been like, see, that's what happens when you try to mess with me. You see, your own body is going to give out on you. That's what happens. And then Snoop Dogg would save the whole segment, coming in and improvising. What a showman, man. What an entertainer. This is a real pro right here, man, in show business. That's what this is, and that's what Snoop Dogg does best. You know what I'm saying? Show business. He's got it. He gets it. And I'll get more into that in the Night 2 review portion. I'm also gonna delve into Jon Moxley. I know this is ancient history at this point. Jon Moxley, obviously responding to CM Punk when CM Punk had a little tirade toward AEW, bearing Chris Jericho, calling Jericho a liar and a stooge, calling Dave Meltzer a liar, calling just venting yet again in a story on Instagram that he deleted, and he threw Jon Moxley under the bus too, saying Jon Moxley didn't want to lose to him and he had a dumbass idea, this and that, and actually it was a dumbass idea. Quite frankly, I'm gonna get into that in the AEW section of this episode. I'm gonna talk about Jon Moxley's rebuttal to that. Again, I'm sorry. I know this is like ancient history now with everything that has gone down this past week. I mean, WrestleMania Night 1 and 2 and all the news that produced. WWE getting sold to Endeavor and now gonna merge with UFC in a brand new company. What does this mean for the future? I'm gonna get into that right now. Also, this is a very special episode, guys. This is Highlight Reel episode 100. Officially 100 episodes in the books with this one here. And that's very exciting for me, and I'm very proud of that. Even though I haven't been consistent with this podcast, I do work a 9 to 5. You know what I'm saying? I'm not just sitting at home all day. You know what I mean? I wish I was. No shame to the game, no shame to anybody that's got it like that, but I was working 6 days a week too, and still trying to do this podcast, and my job is a very physical job too. I'm a driver, but yeah, man, for this episode, it's a special episode. I'm gonna give you my personal picks of the top 10 wrestling GOATs, the greatest of all time, in my personal opinion. And for those of you who are new to this show, who are new to listening to my takes and my opinions, when you hear who I have at number 1 as my greatest of all time, you're most likely gonna probably never listen to me again. I hope not. It's just my opinion, man. But whenever I tell people who I have as my number 1 GOAT in this game, people are always going to have an opinion and objectify it. And everybody has their own taste and preference in all things, whether it's sports, whether it's wrestling, whether it's movies or music. And I am by no means an expert. I ain't no Jim Ross. I ain't no Jim Cornette. I'm no expert. I never been in the business. I'm just another wrestling nerd with a podcast and an opinion. So take it or leave it. And I'll give you that at the end of the episode. But first, let's go ahead and talk about WWE being sold to Endeavor. Now, for those of you who may not know, Endeavor is the big conglomerate that purchased the UFC for $4 billion 7 years ago, back in 2016. And, it was interesting because, Endeavor purchased UFC, but they allowed Dana White to maintain his role as matchmaker, as booker for UFC, essentially doing what Triple H is doing for WWE, or Vince McMahon to a certain degree. And that's how I always imagined WWE would be sold as well, that whoever purchased WWE, it would be the same people in charge for WWE. Now, WWE can be added to the portfolio for a whopping $9 billion. That is bananas. Banana jammas in your old lady's pajamas. That is crazy. And with WWE and UFC merging into one sports entertainment entity in the stock trade, it will be evident they will be valued at $21 billion. Crazy. Crazy. Endeavor will have a 51% controlling interest, with the remaining 49% spread across WWE and its shareholders. Although Vince McMahon will retain his current WWE title of executive chairman at the new company not yet named, he has a boss. He will answer to CEO Ariel Emanuel, who is the CEO of Endeavor, and will serve as the CEO for the new company yet to be named. Dana White would comment this morning saying, quote unquote, "This company has been on fire for the last 7 years, and now that we will be adding WWE to the portfolio, I am excited to take this to another level. Vince is a savage in the wrestling space, Ari is a beast at what he does, and then add what we at UFC bring to the table, and there is no limit to what this company can accomplish in the next 5 years." So, nothing's gonna change, guys. That's the first thing I want to say. Because you have a lot of people in the IWC kind of panicking, kind of like, oh man, WWE's gonna start charging, $60 for for premium live events and this and that, which by the way, that's not too bad. I mean, I'm a boxing fan, bro. You know how much boxing pay-per-views cost? We're talking about upwards of $75 to $80. I read a report that the Ryan Garcia Gervonta Tank Davis fight going down on the 22nd, that shit's gonna be $85 to stream that shit. That is bananas. So, paying $50 or $60 for pay-per-views, that doesn't sound too bad. But, I mean, nah, that would suck, actually. That would suck. It's not gonna happen, guys. WWE's current deal with Peacock, that's gonna run through to late 2026. Okay, now that's in 3 years, so 3 years will go up pretty quickly. But I have a hunch that WWE, I highly doubt that they would go back to the pay-per-view model, because it's a model that can't support. It's not sustainable for WWE. It could work for people like UFC or AEW, because a UFC or AEW, they're only running a handful of pay-per-views a year. Like with AEW, I don't know specifically how UFC handles their pay-per-view model, but like, let's look at AEW, for instance. They only run 4 pay-per-views a year at $49.99. So that's competitive. That's not a bad deal. And in AEW, they put on very good cards. You get a lot of bang for your buck. In most cases, you get too much bang for your buck, because AEW pay-per-views, they be going for so fucking long, man. Like 8 hours. Y'all thought WrestleMania Night 1 and Night 2 were long. AEW pay-per-views are essentially a WrestleMania. Every pay-per-view for them, And when it comes to the length. But when it comes to WWE, who is running multiple premium live events a month, sometimes, if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure WWE has even ran like more than one pay-per-view in a single month as well, if I'm not mistaken. I don't remember like the exact pay-per-views. I want to say like day one. And then you had, I don't know what pay-per-view specifically, but I know that WWE has ran more than one pay-per-view a month at that, premium live events, as they're called. And then you throw in NXT, they got their own premium live events, right? Or I don't know if they're, exclusive to Peacock, or if they're, I don't know, but the point is, the pay-per-view model as it used to be, the way UFC and AEW do it, it cannot be sustainable in WWE's workflow. The way they tour, the way they produce events, It's just not realistic. Nobody is gonna be buying pay-per-views every month. In some cases, multiple pay-per-views in 1 month. It's not gonna happen. And I'm pretty sure WWE recognizes that. They're not stupid. You know what I mean? They're very, very business savvy people. I mean, between Vince McMahon and Nick Khan, those are two brilliant minds when it comes to business. They know what they're doing. They're not stupid. You know what I mean? So anybody out there that's all panicking, oh, WWE is gonna start charging for pay-per-views, and they're gonna have an octagon now, and this not gonna happen. Nothing is gonna change. At least not right away. I could promise you that. Not right away. Nothing's gonna change. WWE, they have contracts in place already with Peacock. I think the Fox network, that one is the one that's actually kind of up in the air, I think, because they're at the moment now, I believe, I could be wrong, but I think that they're in the process of negotiating a renewal right now for SmackDown on Fox. I would have to check out Brandon Thurston at WrestleNomics. He's the numbers guy, and he's like really knowledgeable about this kind of stuff with contracts, negotiations, and business. But yeah, that's the first thing I just want to say right now, right up front. WWE is not gonna change, at least not yet, not anytime soon. Big changes take a long time. You know what I mean? They take a while to take effect. You know what I mean? These are big companies. These aren't companies, these are corporations. You know what I mean? This is like little countries right here with the amount of people they employ and all of the many facets that go into the decision making and all the things. It's like a little country. It's like governments right here. You know what I'm saying? That's how crazy business is when you're talking big business. And nothing's gonna change for the foreseeable future. Now, I will say the WWE and UFC becoming one single entity, as a live events, as a sports, as an entertainment marketing brand globally, this could be actually quite interesting because I'm seeing cross promotion even bigger now for UFC and WWE. Not necessarily that we're gonna be seeing like Conor McGregor, fighting some dudes in WWE and seeing vice versa, right? Seeing Brock Lesnar go into, not necessarily that, but think about the merchandise. Think about the merchandising. Think about the video games for a second. WWE 2K and UFC. Like I'm imagining downloadable content. Like imagine being able to download some UFC guys into the WWE game. Like I don't know, things like that. They could do some very cool stuff is all I'm saying. Like as far as cross promotion, cross marketing, you know what I mean? It's gonna be very interesting to see how this goes. But for the most part though, I'm pretty sure that WWE and UFC, they're gonna stay in their own lanes. The way I look at this is kind of like when Disney, Disney purchased Marvel, they purchased LucasArts or Lucasfilm, right? The Star Wars stuff. They purchased 21st Century Fox. They own the Simpsons stuff. But, and Disney, of course, owns Pixar and all that. But when's the last time you seen, Buzz Lightyear appear in a Marvel movie? You know what I'm saying? Or when's the last time you see Spider-Man appear in a Pixar film or a Disney animated movie? You see what I'm saying? Like, they're different properties. They're different IPs. They're not gonna... Disney does cool cross-promotion as far as merchandising. That's what I was getting at with WWE and UFC. They could do some cool merchandising stuff. And then, of course, like, you go to Disneyland and you can buy a t-shirt that has, like, Pixar characters and Marvel characters and Disney characters all in one, in one pose. But as far as like the movies and stuff, you don't see these universes colliding. You know what I mean? They stay in their own lane. So I don't know if I'm articulating this well, but that's how I see WWE and UFC. They're gonna stay in their own lane and continue to thrive individually, even though they're merged together as one big corporation now. So if you go and buy stock on WWE, you're gonna own UFC stock as well, to my understanding. But right now, they don't have a name for this entity yet. You know, what's it gonna be called? Because right now it's just, you know, UFC and WWE. But there's gonna be, or Endeavor, I don't know, but there's gonna be a name that they're gonna call it, which is going to be the name for these two giants combined. So it's gonna be interesting to see what it could be titled, you know, what it could be named. Probably Endeavor Sports Entertainment Brand or something. I don't know. But that's the first thing I just wanted to say, man. WWE's not changing. Like Triple H said in the press conference, they're just getting started. And for the people out there that are pushing this narrative that Vince McMahon is like, he's trying to regain control and this and that. So Vince McMahon was asked if he will be, you know, taking the reins and creative for WWE, and he said yes and no. That the ultimate decisions are gonna be lied on him and could be asked of him, but is he gonna be in the thick of things? Is he gonna be in the weeds? Is he gonna be in gorilla on that headset making calls? And you know, no, he's not gonna be doing all that. Triple H is retaining his role as Chief Content Officer and Head of Creative. That's not gonna change. And quite frankly, you know, I think it was always okay, I'm not saying this right. So when Vince McMahon stepped down, I feel like he never stepped down. If that makes any sense. Like, I feel like, you know, he did step down, but quite frankly, I feel like he was still influencing WWE while he was away. You know, because as I've said it many times now, and I know it's kind of an unpopular opinion, but I feel like Vince McMahon never left, bro. Like, WWE hasn't felt that much different to me personally. You know, I've been watching WWE since 1999, since 2000, and then watching it lately, it hasn't felt that much different, honestly. Now Triple H has made some tweaks. He's made things. He definitely has made the storytelling better. He's made the matches better. Like, the matches actually have some length to them, and they're actually trying to tell stories and interesting stories as well, not just throwaway stuff, you know, and less goofy shit, you know. But besides those little tweaks, it hasn't felt all that much different. So I think it's gonna stay this way, and it's a good thing. I mean, WrestleMania was it's already being called a top 5 WrestleMania of all time. I think I could agree with that. I wouldn't put it. My personal favorite WrestleMania is probably WrestleMania 18, maybe, where Rock and Hogan had that electrifying matchup. And even though the main event was kind of a letdown there between Jericho and Triple H, that WrestleMania just had it all. You know, live performance. I don't know. It was just a tremendous show. You know, Booker T making his debut at WrestleMania facing Edge. They were fighting over shampoo. Somebody had a sign that said that. These guys are fighting over shampoo. And he was right there in the hard cam too. It was perfect. That was my favorite WrestleMania. But this WrestleMania that went down over this weekend, it's definitely one of the hottest WrestleManias of all time. And it'll be one of my biggest regrets, yet again, that I didn't go to it. You know, I say yet again because when WrestleMania came to the Staples Center, I was only 14 years old, you know, but I could have went, and I didn't. And that was always my biggest regret, because that was the last WrestleMania appearance for Eddie Guerrero. which made it all the more touching that at this past WrestleMania, during Rey Mysterio's entrance, he came out to Eddie's theme song, and you seen Eddie in the Titantron, bro. Chills. Viva la raza, man. Chills. And speaking of chills, I'm going to go ahead and get off this WWE Sale news. If anything new comes about with it, any more details, you already know. Your boy Lalo THR will delve into it in future episodes of the Highlight Reel. This podcast, by the way, y'all, is available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. If you don't want to, watch it on YouTube, obviously this is an audio podcast. While you go to work, while you drive to work, while you wash your dishes in your crib, man, you could listen to my my expert opinion. I want to entertain you a little bit. Tune in, man. The Highlight Reel. It's available. Spotify, Apple Podcasts. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Lalo_THR. That's Lalo, LALO _THR. Wrestlemania Night 2 opened up with MJF and Snoop Dogg welcoming us back to the grandest stage, and they turned up the heat by introducing the opening contest, which would be contested by Brock Lesnar and the Nigerian giant Omos. And it's interesting that his name is pronounced Omos, because when you see it spelled, it looks like Omos. Like, it reminds me of Edward James Olmos. You know what I'm saying? But you know what? I'm going to say this. Omos, he gets it from all angles. They call him a African version of the Great Khali, Giant Gonzalez, this and that. But Omos actually looked not bad in this match with Lesnar. And that also goes to the prowess of Brock Lesnar. When Lesnar really wants to, he can put over somebody big. And he could do some very good work in that ring. I'm going to tell you right now, before this episode ends, I'm going to give you my 10 greatest wrestlers of all time list as part of this grand celebration, Highlight Reel episode 100, and Brock Lesnar is going to be on that list. So there's a little spoiler for you. But nonetheless, Brock Lesnar would go over, and I was anticipating that the Hurt Business would get back together as a result from this matchup in some form or fashion, with MVP coming out and Bobby Lashley coming out and trashing on Lesnar, his arch nemesis. But it didn't happen. So only time will tell. It would be a good thing if the Hurt Business got back together, though, for sure. Ronda Rousey, Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler would defeat Liv Morgan, Raquel Rodriguez, Natalya, Shotzi, Chelsea Green, and Sonya Deville. This was a prediction that I got wrong here. I thought Liv and Rodriguez would take it, just because I feel like Rodriguez is somebody that they're high on. They're trying to push. They're trying to strap that little rocket booster pack onto. But the more I thought about it, it made sense. It made sense for Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler to go over, because they got some good experience, and they're a lot more believable. Obviously, these are two women who could legitimately wreck some of the men even in a real life fight if they wanted to. So it made sense. But this was like the proverbial bathroom break match, if I'm being quite honest. But what was the complete opposite of a bathroom break match? We had the triple threat match pop off for the Intercontinental Championship. Gunther beat the brakes off of Sheamus and Drew McIntyre and retained the IC title. And I actually got this prediction wrong as well. I really thought McIntyre would have a nice little WrestleMania moment, but they gave it to Gunther, and it makes when I look back on it, it makes the most sense, because it's very evident that Gunther is the anointed one. This is the guy right here, guys, who could potentially be the one to take the titles off of Roman Reigns. You know, I said it in the review of night 1 leading up to night 2. I said it that at this point, I just don't believe in not just Cody, but I don't really believe in anybody to take the titles off of Roman in a one-on-one affair in the ring. You know, Cody just doesn't look like a killer to me, dog, who would be believable in slaying the tribal chief. But when you talk about Gunther, that's somebody that I could believe. Because, you know, when I look at this stuff, you know, wrestling is a work. Yes, I don't like to use the word fake, but, you know, everybody knows wrestling is a work. But I look at somebody like Cody and I look at Roman and I say, if these two guys got into a real life scrap, a real life fight, no referee, no spots, no working, just a real life fight, who would win? And if there is not a single scenario where I can see Cody beating Roman in a real life fight, then it's difficult for me. It's difficult for me to then suspend my disbelief to believing in him beating Roman Reigns in a scripted fight. Now, when you change that dynamic up and throw somebody like Gunther into the mix, you know, Gunther is somebody who I could definitely see potentially, possibly beating the brakes off of Roman in a real life fight. It would be a good fight. I could see a few scenarios where he comes out on top in a real life fight. So yeah, man. That's how it goes. That's how it goes. Only time will tell what they do with Gunther, man. But let's just say right now, this guy, he's gonna get elevated to the next level. Everybody came out looking great after this match. There were no losers in this triple threat match. Gunther's chest looked like it was rotting, bro, with all of them knife edge chops he was getting from Sheamus and McIntyre. It was crazy. All of these guys, they came out looking better than ever when it was all said and done. Big ups. Bianca Belair and Asuka had very interesting entrances. Bianca Belair had like a group of contortionists, these little girls that came out with her, and I was saddened to read that the main contortionist girl that did her thing during Bianca's entrance, apparently her mother had passed away like a day before the show or something like that, or hours even leading up to the performance. I don't remember which or which, but either way, her mom did pass shortly before that performance, and she still delivered. You know, and that is something that, you know, I mean, I'm somebody who lost my mom at a young age, a relatively young age. I was in my early 20s when I lost my mom, and I could not imagine doing anything. I mean, you know, when my mom passed away, I think I went to work, and then I like stopped working for like the rest of the week. I took like 2 weeks off or something like that. But yeah, for this girl to do something like that, though, to go out in front of 80,000 people capacity and do her thing, that is tremendous, man. That was brilliant. And that little girl, she's gonna grow up and become, she's already special, you know, that what she could do with her body, that kind of stuff. That's like some Circus Olay stuff. That's incredible, man. She's very gifted, and she has that strength in her to take it to the next level. So that was beautiful. But the match wasn't very beautiful. The match was I don't want to call it a dud, but the crowd was dead for this match. But it's kind of sad that they had to follow the Gunther match. I mean, it was to be expected. But the crowd was kind of dead, man, and it wasn't the best of matches. Asuka is not very over. I thought she was a lot more over than what she is. But it's not her fault. This match didn't have a lot of heat. It didn't have a lot of build. It's just kind of thrown together, kind of like a Tony Khan style match right here. Just two good women's wrestlers. Fuck it, let's book them. You know what I mean? This didn't have a whole lot of build, a whole lot of heat. Now, it does appear that Asuka wants to turn heel, or she's already in the process of turning heel, because she came out talking mad shit, like in a tweet or something. I don't know where, but I read that Asuka said, I don't know if she said this in an interview or if she tweeted this or what, but she's like, the women's division is boring, and I want to bring chaos to WWE to give some life to the boring women's division and this and that. So that's interesting. I guess she's gonna turn heel, or I don't know if she's already been a heel and she's just trying to elevate her character to another layer. Only time will tell. But yeah, man, Bianca Belair retains the women's championship, and it remains to be seen. You know what? Yeah, I think Charlotte's gonna end up taking that title off of Bianca, probably in the not too distant future. It remains to be seen if we have some kind of brand split or something. I know Monday Night Raw is actually going down as I record this episode. I have it on in the living room right now. But I'm an AEW guy, so it don't matter. It don't matter to me. Nah, I'm just playing. I'm a wrestling fan at the end of the day. But The Miz would confront one Snoop D-O-double-G about the Pat McAfee fiasco from night one, embarrassing The Miz, getting beat by fellow commentator and analyst Pat McAfee. And Snoop would say, my bad. But when I say my bad, I'm talking about, and here comes the money hits, Shane O'Mac makes his grand return. He's running around, doing his little dance, his little Shane strut. Grand return to the grandest stage. Ready Paquete for an impromptu match. When Shane throws those punches, bro. Oh my god, those punches already had me laughing. You know, Shane McMahon, he throws them punches like he thinks he's a boxer. He thinks he's throwing good punches too, but they're like the worst punches I've ever seen in my life. Oh my lord, but Shane O'Mac, he's feeling it. He's proud of himself. He's throwing them punches all excited. And then when he does the Irish whip, whipping the Miz off the ropes to the other ropes, he gets prone. He does the sit, he lays on his stomach. And then when the Miz comes back, he tries to do the leapfrog. And his knee says, nope, denied, no dice. We're going home tonight. We're not fit. We're gonna go on the beach and have a Bahama Mama, maybe a little tequila and rum. You know what I'm saying? We're in sunny SoCal, Daddy. We ain't got time to do all this. Shane O'Mac's body said, this is not the one. This is not the one. And The Miz, like I said at the top of the pod, The Miz was like, he was pacing around. He didn't know what the hell to do. And like a true showman, the dog... I do want to say... It was funny to me, though. I forgot. When Shane McMahon did that leapfrog, though, like right when he did it, while he was in the air, Michael Cole was like, oh, Shane still got it. And like right when he said still got it is when Shane came crashing down to reality, man. That's when his leg came out. He fell like a sack of potatoes. But oh man. And The Miz didn't know what to do. Snoop Dogg, like a true showman, the Dogfather, coming in clutch, man. He came in and improvised another terrible looking punch. But nonetheless, he ain't trying to legitimately punch nobody. But he did this punch that clearly didn't connect on The Miz. But of course, The Miz, being a showman himself, he sold it. He hit the mat, putting his hand over his mouth like he got popped. And the commentators would also sell it as such. And that was that. that was that. It was a nice save. Snoop Dogg would do the doggy elbow, as it would be called by Michael Cole. The doggy's elbow, essentially doing the Rock's people's elbow, but with his own flair. He threw his sunglasses, those aviators. I don't think he actually threw it into the crowd. But those are expensive ass glasses. I could tell you right now, as somebody who goes through a pairs of glasses like every other month, because every pair of glasses I buy always breaks or something. And that's my fault, because I buy cheap ass sunglasses because I don't want to spend money on expensive ones, because all the glasses that I have, they always break or they get lost or something happens. I'm a delivery driver. I drive a truck, and like Cisco, Shamrock Foods, like that kind of deal. And my glasses always get fucked up some way somehow. So that's why I don't spend money. But I know they're very expensive. Anyway, I'm digressing really hard right now. Yeah, man. Hey, Snoop Dogg and Triple H said it. Triple H said it in the post-show press conference. He would say that Snoop Dogg has earned his respect, like tenfolds. That he already had a lot of respect for Snoop, but after that night, he reached a whole nother level of respect. And indeed, it's well deserved, because he saved that segment. I mean, it still was a shitty segment, but hey, I mean, we got to see Snoop do do his version of the People's Elbow. I guess that's a WrestleMania moment. But Shane McMahon should not ever come back to the ring again for any kind of match, bro. Unbelievable. Edge defeats Finn Balor in the Hell in a Cell match. Bro, Edge's entrance was out of control. He came out to Slayer, South of Heaven, before his real theme hit, his original theme hit. And Finn Balor came out as Demon Finn. And, this match was kind of ruined because early on, I don't know if it was early on in the match, but Finn Balor got busted up. And his gash is actually a lot worse than I thought. They actually showed pictures, like I seen it on Twitter. Somebody tweeted a picture of his gash after the fact, after the match, and I was like, oh shit, that was crazy. The match was actually supposed to go longer than it did, but clearly they called an audible and stopped the match early on. They had Edge, get the pinfall victory. But it was slated to go on longer, but that was a very deep gash that Finn Balor had. And if it was from the ladder spot, Edge would throw the ladder at Finn Balor. He did not protect himself correctly. I mean, how do you protect yourself correctly, right? At a freaking ladder coming flying at your face. But he did the best he could to put his hands up, but that shit cut him up real good. And hopefully Finn Balor recovers from that. That's that'll have him miss a week or two of shows. But what a brilliant performer both of these guys are. But big ups to Finn Balor, man. That's somebody who people need to put respect on his name, man. You know what I mean? He's a good worker. He's a real good worker. And Edge, he's more than a good worker. He's a very special worker. But you guys want to talk about special workers? Roman Reigns, Cody Rhodes for the WWE Universal Championship. And this is a prediction I got correct. And Roman Reigns retained the title by defeating the American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes. This was a crazy match, man. I'm not even gonna lie. This match had me on the edge of my seat. This reminded me of MJF versus Bryan Danielson at Revolution in that Iron Man match. That's what this match reminded me of. I mean, I was just I was all into it, man. I was off into the deep end with this match. You know what I mean? I felt like smoking a cigarette, and I don't even smoke. Not anymore. This match made me want to go buy a pack of cigarettes. I was like, man, I'm about to go to 7-Eleven right now. This match fucked my head up, bro. How am I supposed to go to sleep after this match? It's crazy. What a tremendous matchup, and big ups to both of these gentlemen for giving their bodies and doing what they did. They left it all in the ring legitimately. Bro, when Cody Rhodes was doing the crossroads, he did one, and then when he got Roman up to execute the other before Solo Sikoa came out of nowhere, a wild Solo Sikoa appeared. Sikoa. I cannot talk. I cannot pronounce this man's name. Solo Sikoa would appear and cause shenanigans and led to Roman Reigns retain the title. And I think this was a mistake, because I think that Roman should have beat Cody clean. I really do. I don't see the purpose in having Roman win like a chicken shit heel with shenanigans. Roman is a fucking savage, bro. Roman's the type of dude you see in an alley. You're not gonna make eye contact with him if you're walking by him. You know what I mean? I don't care how big you are. I don't care how strong you think you are. Roman's the type of dude, you see him coming, walking on the sidewalk, and you're walking past him, you're not gonna make eye contact with him. And if you do, you're gonna look away real quick. Like, hey, bro, I don't want none. I'm not trying to intimidate you. I don't want none. Roman would whoop that ass. And I think it's a disservice to his character at this point when you have, you know, the bloodline, goons, you know, helping him and leading him to victory, especially against, you know, someone like Cody, who, let's be honest, Cody is a phenomenal worker and he has a tremendous family legacy in this business and is one of the most respected gentlemen in this sport. But he's not somebody that gives me the impression of being a legitimate threat to a man of Roman Reigns' figure. I don't see it. Roman should have beat Cody clean. And then the bloodline could have came out in the end, you know, to celebrate with their boy, because they're trying to put over the whole faction here. I get it. But that's my only gripe. That's my only gripe. Roman should have won this match clean. Not with any shenanigans. Certainly not interference anyway, you know what I mean? But it is what it is. All in all, you know, night one really set the bar way too high. You know, night two was never going to... And I feel like that's been a theme with WrestleMania ever since it's gone to 2 nights. Going back... Well, when did that start? That was like 2 years ago, right? What WrestleMania was it that started this new model of WrestleMania being a 2-night event? I don't know. I don't remember, but I know that it feels like that's how it's always been. Like, night one is always like setting the tone, you know, and being spectacular, and then night two is always kind of like, oh, we're just here for the main event, you know what I mean? Everything else is just fluff from here on out. But all in all, man, you know, a lot of people are saying that this past WrestleMania is among the best, like in the top 5 best WrestleManias of all time, and I can't argue that. I can't disagree, really. I cannot disagree with that. So big ups, man, to the WWE and to all the staff and crew that put on this incredible show, man. You know, they really left an impression on LA. I hope they come back. You know, we showed so much love. I didn't. I wasn't there, but but everybody that showed up, wrestling fans in Southern California, the Southern California wrestling fan base is so underrated, bro. You know, like Chicago gets all the love. Philadelphia gets all the love. Chicago and Philly But bro, Southern California, and you know what? California in general, because wrestling is big out there in the Bay Area too. Obviously, I mean, I'm pretty sure AEW Revolution popped off in the Bay Area, right? In NorCal. So pretty much California in general. We're big wrestling fans out here, bro. We are, yeah, and we might not get as rowdy as Chicago necessarily, but we get pretty loud. I could tell you right now, when I went to AEW Dynamite at the Great Western Forum, or the Kia Forum as they now call it, my ears were ringing for like 2 days after that show. It was so fucking loud, bro. AEW Dynamite at the Kia Forum. Especially, I'll never forget it, during MJF's pipe bomb promo. Like, that's one of the loudest crowds I've ever heard. And I've been to many events. I've been to WWE Unforgiven pay-per-view. I've been to Raw, SmackDown, multiple Raws and SmackDowns. I've been to WWE house shows. I've been to concerts. I've been to hip-hop concerts. I've been to a Cypress Hill concert, a Bone Thugs and Harmony concert, some indie bands concert. I can't even remember the name. I just went with a friend. But I've been to a lot of live shows of various kinds. And that AEW crowd in the Kia Forum is one of the loudest crowds I've ever been a part of. And all this to say that pro wrestling is big out here in SoCal. And y'all need to put some respect on our name. And I hope WWE seen that we are so passionate and we love professional wrestling out here in Southern California, and I hope they come back. And I know they will, but I'm just saying. I'm just making a statement. But speaking of making statements, guys, we're gonna talk about Jon Moxley clapping back as CM Punk. And I'm gonna do this right about now. Immediately following CM Punk's AEW tirade that he posted in an Instagram story a couple of weeks ago, Jon Moxley would respond to some of his gripes on his wife's very own podcast, The Sessions with Renee Paquete. Moxley would be asked about the drama and go on to say, quote unquote, "It's fucking annoying. Just because somebody said some stupid shit on social media, like that's not news. But it is. It ends up being a thing. I do not want to get dragged into this dumb shit. I could fucking unload on a lot of fucking people right now. And when I start getting dragged into this shit, it tempts me to do that. But I'm not gonna fucking sink to that level." Moxley would continue, "But I will say this. Just gonna give you like a tidbit of information from my point of view. The entire summer, I was not under contract. No contract. Free agent. I was at SummerSlam weekend wrestling fucking Desperado and shit the day of SummerSlam. I fucking suplexed him on a bunch of aluminum cans, cut it in half. It was fucking dope. I could have walked into SummerSlam that night with the AEW fucking belt if I had been so inclined. Nobody knew that because I don't put my shit out there in the world and let everybody know every fucking thing about my business. I was not under contract. Reason being, if you're curious, because I got out of rehab and my contract was coming up. They extended it for the time that I missed. Cool. I'm glad they did, because I didn't want to feel like I owed them anything. They extended it a little bit. It was coming up. They were talking to me about it. And the last thing I wanted to do when I got out of rehab, because all they were telling me was basically, logic will tell you, don't go back to wrestling because you're just gonna fall into the same old habits. So I wanted to just like ease back into it and see what life was like on the other side. And the last thing I wanted to do was just hurry up and sign a big long-term commitment. Because what if shit started to go off the rails? That being said, during this time period, the night that What's-His-Dick is talking about in Minneapolis, the night he came back and was hopping out on one foot, bumping around Inner Circle or whatever after me and Jericho wrestled, a badass match by the way. So we're talking later about stuff. Now keep in mind, this is my whole point. I basically do not work there For all intents and purposes, I don't even work here. Tony Khan is not my boss. I don't have to be in this room. I don't have to do shit. So even me being in this room and offering and agreeing to a storyline that puts you over at the pay-per-view, if anything, I'm bending over backwards for Tony and for this dude and for the company and everybody. I didn't have to. I didn't have to do shit. If anything, I was bending over backwards. So that's it. End quote. Oof. So there's quite a bit to unpack with Jon Moxley's rebuttal there on the sessions with Renee Paquete. Of course, this was in response to CM Punk's Instagram story. I'm not gonna quote that. I mean, you guys already know. I talked about it in previous episodes. Obviously, CM Punk would talk about how he wasn't clear to compete yet, and he, called Dave Meltzer a liar because that's who he was responding to originally. A message board post by Dave Meltzer, which caused all of this shit. And now let me just say something right now. Dave Meltzer is somebody who is dictating to professionals, or who are supposed to be professionals anyway. He's dictating how these guys feel, their moods, and their actions. Because none of this would happen if Dave Meltzer hadn't posted a dumbass post on a message board, which caused CM Punk, who clearly has a very fragile mind, fragile ego, felt the need to respond to it in a story before he deleted that shit like 2 minutes later. Of course, fans would screenshot it. It goes wild. And then people hit up Jon Moxley like, hey man, CM Punk talked about you and you didn't want to put him over and this and that. And this is all from a seed planted from Dave Meltzer. But it makes me embarrassed that this weasel could cause turbulence between people who are supposed to be professionals. You understand what I'm saying? Like, CM Punk shouldn't have even responded, and Jon Moxley shouldn't have even responded to CM Punk. And that's what's funny to me about this quote, is because Jon Moxley actually says it, when Renee Paquete asks him, hey, you want to respond to any of the drama? Moxley says, no, I don't. It's fucking annoying and this and that. But then he goes on to reply to it. Then he's like, oh, but I will say this. It's kind of like, I don't know. I'm trying to think of a good analogy for this, but it's just funny to me, man. It's kind of like when your girl says, "Oh, I'm not mad. Nothing's wrong. Everything's okay." And then she's like, "It's just," and then you gasp like it's coming. Okay, well, go ahead, sweetheart, lay it on me. But CM Punk was tentatively looking to return. At least it appeared so. And now it's kind of up in the air. There's been reports now that there's a whole nother layer of uncertainty yet again added to this. I mean, it was looking like CM Punk was in fact getting ready to come back to AEW and do business. Supposedly he was even ready to apologize to whoever he needed to, which I don't believe that. I highly doubt that. After seeing how Punk acts, bro, I do not believe in a million years that this fool would go up to Adam Page. Let's use him as an example. Let's not even talk about Colt Cabana or anybody else, but let's talk about Adam Page. Can you imagine CM Punk going up to Adam Page and saying, hey bro, I just want to apologize to you for being a dick, for getting, for throwing you under the bus because you did shoot on me and I acted the way I acted. You know what? I was pissed off at you, but I should have been more professional. I've been in this business for like two, almost 3 decades. I should have been the adult here, the grown ass man, and the veteran, and do things a lot differently. And I'm sorry. I was kind of a dick, bro. What I said at the press conference, calling you an empty-headed dumb fuck and all that. Like, I cannot see CM Punk being diplomatic like that. I just can't. I can't. Let alone him apologizing to the Bucks or to Colt Cabana. That ain't never gonna happen. Now, I did read that CM Punk and Kenny Omega are actually pretty chill with each other. That Punk even told Omega that the issue isn't with him and this and that. So, I mean, there's some food for thought there in that direction. But either way, man, CM Punk has just been a giant headache. He's been a giant headache. And listen, I'm not gonna sit here and lie to you. I know I said it, that I'm done with CM Punk in the prior episode, in a couple episodes ago, but I would be lying if I told you that I would not be excited to see CM Punk come back to AEW. I would love to see it, man, but the guy just seems like a big headache. And you got some people out there saying, oh, well, Punk, he generates the ratings and the merchandise sales and the live gates. He's too much of a good thing for AEW than not. But bro, no, he's not. Because if the locker room is gonna descend into chaos or disarray or discomfort, you're gonna have guys walking on eggshells when CM Punk is around. The last thing a wrestling company wants or needs is their locker room to be in disarray, to lose their locker room. When there's no trust in the locker room and the boys aren't happy and there's like some ruckus and there's issues brewing in a locker room, you never want that in a wrestling company. So yeah, CM Punk, yeah, he's a ratings draw to a degree. He's I mean, the pay-per-views that he's been on, Tony Khan will tell you, the pay-per-views that CM Punk has been on have done the best business for AEW and this and that. That's all fine and dandy, but it's not even worth that if he's gonna come back and just continue to stir the pot and have people walking on eggshells, leading to perhaps, I mean, not too long ago, AEW fans like myself included, we were talking about the potential, the possibility of the Elite leaving All Elite Wrestling, which would be bananas. You know what I mean? The whole damn company is named after them, Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks, and that's something that could very well happen if CM Punk comes back and he's not willing to play nice with others. I get it. He's a guy who wears his heart on his sleeve. He's an emotional dude. He's very passionate, blah, blah, blah. CM Punk needs to smoke a blunt, dog. CM Punk needs to smoke a blunt. I'm going to tell you right now, I know he's straight edge and this and that, but he needs a drink or he needs a fat-ass blunt to lighten the fuck up, bro. You know what I mean? Maybe that'll get him to play nice with others and to leave behind his ego just temporarily. You know what I mean? It's just wild. It's like when you hear Jon Moxley respond. I don't know if I quoted it. I did cut the quote in half because it was longer than that. I know I read quite a bit, but it was even longer than that. Jon Moxley would say, what the fuck is there to complain about? Like, dude, this is so much fun. We're doing a lot of great things. What is there to complain about? And that's something that needs to be echoed to CM Punk, because CM Punk is somebody who came to this company and Tony Khan rolled out the red carpet for his ass. Quite literally. If you watch Rampage, quite literally, the whole stage looked like it was a red carpet for the first dance, for CM Punk. You had Tony Khan exploding on any reporter that asked CM Punk a derogatory question like about Eric Bischoff shitting on his return and this and that. I mean, CM Punk got so much and then some in this company, All Elite Wrestling, and for him to act like that, like a prima donna, bro, it just is so off-putting, and it's hard for me to justify a Punk return to the company. You know, even if he does, I mean, he would have to apologize to everybody, and he would have to make a public statement of some sort as well. Honestly, which again, that's something I just don't think he would be willing to do. I just don't think so. And you know, CM Punk has a sharp tongue. Even if he were to make some kind of public statement, he'd probably still be a little smartass about it. I could already see it. Like he'd probably like throw some backhanded, like passive aggressive shit. Like he'd be like, "Oh, you know, guys, I want to apologize because, you know, when you work with children." Sometimes it could get out of hand, but I see though I need to be oh bro, I needed some water. I needed some milk. I was just laughing way too much at my little CM Punk impersonation. Oh man, I can't do it. But as I was saying, as I was trying to eloquently articulate, it's very difficult for me to imagine a scenario where CM Punk makes amends, man, where he comes out and, I mean, he apologizes to everybody who deserves an apology privately, but then comes out on an episode of Dynamite or perhaps on the sessions with Renee Paquete, even, just an example, where he comes out publicly and really buries the hatchet and makes amends and actually like acknowledges that he was being a dick at the media scrum and what he said and being a dick yet again in that little story replying to Dave Meltzer. You know, if people just fucking ignore Dave Meltzer, you know, the wrestling world would be a better place. Dave Meltzer, that fool can't even talk. Like, if you listen to him, I mean, I don't know. I guess I'm probably the last person who should criticize how somebody else talks. But let's move on, man. It remains to be seen what happens with CM Punk, but big ups to Jon Moxley for being an OG. And I mean, the biggest takeaway from his, actually, before I move on, I should kind of react to Jon Moxley's confession there, or not confession, but revelation that he had been working without a contract in AEW. That is, bro, Tony Khan, he's kind of gullible, man. Like, he trusts people way too much. Like, he is a very trusting guy. He's too nice for this business, bro. That's gonna bite him in the ass one day, because like Jon Moxley said it himself. He's like, bro, I could have showed up on WWE SummerSlam if I wanted to with the AEW title belt, and you know they would have allowed Jon Moxley to come in and bring the title with him too. And that would be like when Alundra Blaze brought the women's title to WCW and threw it in a garbage can. You know what I mean? You know, Tony Khan, I like him. He's a nice guy. Clear, as you could see, he's a little too nice. He's very trusting, very, very trusting for him to allow Jon Moxley to work without a contract and hold the title. And wow. And he was performing at other places. Wow, that is crazy, man. That is crazy. So obviously that's the biggest takeaway from that interview there with Renee Paquete. Renee Moxley good. And yeah, man, like I said, I hate to be like dramatic and say, oh, I'm done with Punk and this and that. I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I would be excited to see Punk come back to AEW and do it big, you know, but it's just hard for me. Like I said, it's hard for me to imagine a scenario where he actually truly buries the hatchet and makes amends with everybody. Yes, even Colt Cabana. You know what I mean? And apologize to everybody for being a dick at the media scrum, for first and foremost. But Jon Moxley, he shouldn't have even responded to CM Punk's story. But he's an OG for keeping it real at least, and for keeping his word to Tony Khan. You know what I mean? Because that is crazy. That is crazy. All right, guys. So the last thing I'm going to talk to you guys about, I'm going to give you my top 10 GOATs of pro wrestling, in my opinion. This is celebrating my 100th episode of this prestigious podcast here, the spiciest podcast in the produce section, the highlight reel. So before I give you my top 10 greatest wrestlers of all time, again, in my opinion, I'm going to give you 5 honorable mentions first. And when I run down this list, I'm going to try to give reasons for each selection. Whoop, wrong button there. Muting the music. I'm going to try to give you reasons for each selection. So, first up for the honorable mentions, Kenny Omega. Kenny Omega's work in AEW has been tremendous, man. And in particular, I would say throughout 2021, when he was the belt collector, you know, wearing the Impact title, the TNA championship, the AEW championship, the Mexican championship, all of those titles, like FTR were with the tag titles. But Kenny Omega was also traveling. He was a traveling champion, putting in work. That's why he had to take time off, because he was so banged up. I have a lot of respect for Kenny Omega. But, yeah, he's an honorable mention for sure, and I'm pretty sure he's going to elevate his legacy within this next decade, man. That's probably how much time he has left, maybe under a decade to go in this business. I think he's like 40 years old, actually, so that remains to be seen. Rey Mysterio, Hall of Famer. I almost put him on the actual list instead of an honorable mention, but for now, I think he deserves definitely to be in as an honorable mention of one of the GOATs, because Rey Mysterio influenced this business. You know, I want to say right now, the style that you see today of wrestlers doing all these high spots and flying around and doing all these crazy things, putting in work, that shit is influenced by Lucha Libre and Rey Mysterio, who really put Lucha Libre on the map in the United States. Especially in AEW, when you see cats like Kenny Omega doing all of them tope suicidas and you know, all those crazy aerial moves and hurricane ranas and all these high spots, that shit is all directly influenced by Lucha Libre and Rey Mysterio, who put Lucha Libre on the map, and ain't nobody could tell me any different. You know, Japanese wrestling gets all the love, but it's time we put some respect on Mexican wrestling too, because that shit is still influencing professional wrestling today. You know what I'm saying? And that's real talk. So Rey Mysterio, he's influenced everything, bro. From the wrestling today, from young Mexican Americans and young Mexicans trying to get into the wrestling game. You know, Ray and Eddie Guerrero, obviously, a big part of that. But, yeah, man, so big ups to Ray, the official Hall of Fame inductee of 2023. And, man, he's got a beautiful family, man. His wife, she's a ride or die, bro. Goodness gracious, she's a hell of a woman that Rey Mysterio has by his side. And obviously Dominic and Aaliyah, he's got a beautiful family, man. Rey Mysterio is so blessed, man. Very, very blessed individual. Roman Reigns is honorable mention number 3. Roman Reigns, obviously, before his run is even over, he's already been going down in all-time great lists all across the board. The only reason I didn't put him on my list is just because it's recency bias, I feel. You know, Roman is magnificent, don't get it twisted, but I feel like he still has some time to go before he can be up in that upper echelon. You feel me? Because at number 2, when you got guys like Triple H who aren't even on that list, you know it's gonna be a wild list. Because Triple H, you know, he's one of the greatest heels of all time. And I've talked about this story before, and I'm gonna say it one more time. You know, my mother, who passed away Valentine's Day of 2013, she never cared about wrestling. But I always tried to get her into wrestling. And no matter what, she just never cared for it. You know, I would be watching Raw or SmackDown, and she'd be in the kitchen, you know, making some lentejas or something. You know what I'm saying? Cooking or something. And she never cared for wrestling. But there was one wrestler who always got her attention. And that was Triple H. Because my mom hated his guts. Man, when Triple H would come out, and this was even before the Reign of Terror. This was before the Reign of Terror. This was during his feud with Shawn Michaels in 2002, 2003, which forced my mom to order the pay-per-view. I think it was Armageddon, I want to say, where Triple H and Shawn Michaels had that match, and then Triple H hit him in the back with a sledgehammer. That was either SummerSlam or Armageddon of 02. I don't remember, but my mom never cared about wrestling. But she hated Triple H so much. She always wanted to see somebody like Shawn Michaels or someone else beat the brakes off of Triple H. She hated him. She couldn't stand him. She was like, every time Triple H would come out and do his whole gimmick with the water bottle, you know, he would pour the water on his hair and then take a sip from the water and then spit it out. It had all my friends going out their house to spit out water. But Triple H captured my mom's attention and made her feel a certain type of way. And as a little boy watching that, I must have been... Now, I was a preteen. I was like 12, 13, around this time already. And as I'm watching that, that's when I figured out how this business really works. It dawned on me, like I had an epiphany, because I tried so hard to get my mom into wrestling. And she never cared for it, never really paid much attention to it. If she would watch it but not get invested into it, she'd be like, oh, okay, yeah, that's cool. Yeah, that's all right. But Triple H, he was so talented as a heel that he made my mom stop what she's doing just so she could cuss out the TV, because she couldn't stand the sight of him spitting out that water and doing his pose on the apron. That's when I knew. That's when it hit me as a little kid. I was like, man, Triple H is fucking great at his job. Like, this is what really makes a good professional wrestler. It's not the hip tosses. It's not the Hurricane Ranas. It's not the suplexes. It's not the headlock takeovers. It's this. This guy that my mom, for some reason, can't stand. He's piercing through her, through the TV screen. With his movements, with his facial expression, with his poses, with his character. That's when I got it. This is what professional wrestling is. It's not the actual wrestling. It's this kind of work that draws somebody in. That's when I realized what this game is all about. Thanks to the game. Triple H. One of the all-time best heels, and he's definitely an honorable mention. And number 1 for my honorable mentions is Hulk Hogan. And the main reason Hulk Hogan is an honorable mention is because he was never a good performer in the ring. He was never really a good performer. Not great. I mean, I've seen some of his stuff in Japan. Hogan could actually go if he wants to. He could actually go. I've seen him work in Japan. You know what I mean? But he was never really like a great wrestler. But Hogan, he's quite possibly the reason WWE is where it's at right now. Hulk Hogan, what he did in the 80s for WWE, It's the equivalent to what John Cena and Roman Reigns have done for WWE in this modern era. Hulk Hogan, he was to call him a box office attraction is an understatement, a mad understatement. I mean, this is a guy who was printing money for the WWF, as it was then called. So he's got to go down as an honorable mention. And his match with The Rock, the passing of the torch, WrestleMania 2018, WrestleMania 18 in 2002, my bad. That WrestleMania, I'm already getting lost just thinking about that match. Just their face off, man. Them just looking at each other, the crowd going bananas, and the atmosphere. I felt it through the TV. And that is something that has not been replicated ever since. It has never been replicated. I've never seen another match that gave me that same vibe that Hogan Rock gave me at WrestleMania 18. One of my all-time favorite matches. So, for sure. But let's go ahead and kick off the list of, in my opinion, guys, top 10 greatest wrestlers of all time. At number 10, Viva la Raza, Eddie Guerrero. I know that Eddie Guerrero is definitely in the top 20s of most people's GOATs list for wrestlers. Sometimes he's up there a little higher. I see him in the top 25. I think Bleacher Report had him at 22 of their 25 greatest wrestlers of all time or something like that. But what Eddie Guerrero means to the Latino community, and specifically to Mexican Americans, Eddie Guerrero is he's an icon for us, man. You know what I mean? I mean, everybody respects him, obviously, from all backgrounds, from all ethnicities. Everybody has love and respect for Eddie. But when it comes to the Latino community, and specifically to Mexican Americans, he's a national treasure for us. One of our greatest natural resources we've ever had. You know what I'm saying? Because Eddie Guerrero opened the door for so many wrestlers. You see wrestlers like Pentagon Jr. and Ray Phoenix over there in AEW still paying tribute to Eddie Guerrero when they go up on those ropes for a frog splash or something. You got wrestlers like Fantasma and others, many others, Rush. All these Mexican wrestlers, bro, all paying tribute to this great Mexican-American wrestler in Eddie Guerrero. And his family legacy. People talk about wrestling families. It's been popularized by the Anoa'i family, right? Everybody knows about the quote-unquote Samoan dynasty, right? And wrestling, The Rock, Peter Maivia, Roman Reigns, the Wild Samoans, Rikishi, Yokozuna, etc., right? Rosie and Jamal, Umaga. Everybody knows about the Samoan dynasty. But what nobody talks about is the Guerrero family and their innovations and contributions. It spans from Eddie, from Chavo Classic to Gory Guerrero, Mando Guerrero. Gory Guerrero created the camel clutch, which is a staple in wrestling. And you know what I mean? The camel clutch, which has been modified, and obviously Rusev, right? Miro, he does his version of it. The Accolade. You had the Iron Sheik and others do their versions of it. That's a Guerrero invention. The camel clutch. The moonsault, doing a backflip off the rope. That is a Guerrero innovation. And these guys don't get that credit. Everybody talks about how good Eddie Guerrero was, but they don't talk about his family and his overall family contributions to the professional wrestling game. So that's why I'm here trying to educate you a little bit, because it goes deeper than just Eddie and Chavo. You know what I'm saying? We got to give love to Gory Guerrero and Mando and them and their innovations in this game. And that's what's up. So that's why he's at my number 10. At number 9, Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle, he's got to be on anybody's list because of his gravitation to this business and the quick pace that he became a freaking GOAT before he even became a GOAT. if that makes any sense. This is a guy who was an amateur wrestler, won an Olympic gold medal with a broken neck. That's a shoot, brother. And he would go on to become one of the best professional wrestlers before his career even really got started, before he even won the title. Like, he was already one of the best wrestlers on the roster, because that's how quickly he schooled up. He got learned up into this game. And I'll never forget Kurt Angle's matches with Eddie Guerrero and with Brock Lesnar. Kurt Angle's Iron Man match with Brock Lesnar, dude, SmackDown, and his match with Lesnar at WrestleMania 19, which was kind of tarnished by the botched shooting star press that could have killed Lesnar, quite frankly, but amazing matches either way. And Kurt Angle has to be on everybody's top list of wrestling goats, bro. Come on now. Dude is the only Olympic gold medalist in professional wrestling history. You know, you gotta have him on there. At number 8, ooh yeah, Macho Man, dig it, freak out. Macho Man Randy Savage. That's a terrible impersonation, but that's hey, nobody could ever talk about Macho Man Randy Savage without trying to impersonate him. That's the indelible effect that he had on everybody, that he continues to have on morons like myself who try to impersonate him. The cream always rises to the top, yo. Macho Man, bro. Oh, man. But, Macho Man Randy Savage, he was, no frills. He just had that one big, beautiful elbow drop off the rope. But this is a guy who, you know, when people try to, describe, well, when people ask me, if you were to ask me, how would you describe Macho Man's character, what he was about, his persona, how do you describe it? I don't know. Nobody knows. Because Macho Man is a one-of-a-kind persona, bro. A one-of-a-kind personality. And it's just something that, I mean, listen, Macho Man was before my time. I mean, when I first got into wrestling, I was a WCW fan. And Macho Man was in WCW. But the bulk of his work that was GOAT-worthy was before my time. But I've seen it. I have the Macho Man DVD anthology, and I've gone back and watched his matches with Hogan, when they were a tag team, and all that stuff. His match with Ricky the Dragon Steamboat and others. He's a tremendous worker, but his personality, though, you know, the colorful outfits, his voice, his gnarly voice, everything about Macho Man is just unforgettable. There's something about Randy Savage that it can never ever be duplicated. You know what I mean? Like, never. Like, there's a bunch of guys like Eddie Guerrero, there's a bunch of dudes, a bunch of Latino wrestlers who are compared to him. Kurt Angle, you got Chad Gable right now being compared to him, and so on, right? Like, there's a lot of wrestlers who could be imitated, never replicated, but could definitely be imitated. But Macho Man is somebody who I don't even think could ever be imitated and replicated to the fullest. I mean, the closest was Jay Lethal as Black Machismo. But that was a joke. That was like a joke. You know what I mean? But Macho Man is just, he's out of this world, man. He's out of this world. One of my all-time favorites, Macho Man Randy Savage. At number 7, John Cena. I don't need to say why. I don't even need to talk about this pick. John Cena, everybody knows, is one of the hardest workers to ever do it. I mean, his work ethic is second to none. Carried the whole company on his shoulders from like 2007 all the way to 2012 or whatever. And all the work that he did and continues to do is incredible. And this is someone who's truly passionate about the WWE. You know, you hear a lot of guys, a lot of wrestlers talk about how they have passion for their business and this and that. But John Cena's a real one. You already know it. I think my favorite John Cena match of all time is his match with Triple H at WrestleMania 22 in Chicago, because it had another electric atmosphere with the crowd. Like the match itself, it was a solid match. It wasn't like spectacular or nothing like that, but it was the crowd that really left an impression on me. I'll never forget it. The Undertaker comes in at number 6, in my opinion. Taker, again, is another pick that I don't even need to talk about. I don't even need to explain this pick. I mean, Undertaker's number 1 for a lot of people, as the GOAT for a lot of people out there. And I would completely understand. Taker is, his legacy speaks for itself. You know, the undefeated streak at WrestleMania, the countless 5-star classics, his Hell in a Cell match with Mankind. Oh my God. That is something that you want to talk about never forget. That's something that nobody will ever forget. Even the Gen Z kids, they go back and watch that and they're like, what the fuck? Nobody will ever forget that. And Taker, you know what's more impressive to me about Taker? Beyond the matches, beyond all of the crazy things he did, the most impressive thing about Undertaker for me is how he fucking stayed in character and never broke character, not once, for like almost 3 decades. No, not almost, like for 3 whole decades, yeah. Like since the 90s to the 2000s to the 2010s up to the 2020s, I think he barely started to break character like just a couple years ago. When, you know, now he's doing all these podcasts like Hot Boxing with Mike Tyson and others. You know, I think he did the Joe Rogan podcast. But man, the longevity of this guy, how he never broke character for all those years, it is out of control. I don't know how he did it. Because let's face it, his character is a difficult one to portray too. It's not like an average Joe type of character. You know, it's not like The Rock, who's essentially himself, being himself toned up to 11, you know, or like John Cena, who again is just being himself, but just tuned up to a few notches. Undertaker is playing a completely supernatural, out of this world, campy kind of character, if you think about it. And for him to not break character for as long as he has is remarkable, to say the least. So that's him at number 6. At number 5, the most electrifying man in sports entertainment, The Rock. I mean, The Rock to me, and the main reason The Rock makes this list and is so high on this list is because, in my opinion, The Rock is the greatest talker of all time. Like, ain't nobody could go one-on-one with The Rock on the mic. John Cena did. John Cena was the only cat who could hang with The Rock on the mic, but he barely was able to during their build to the once-in-a-lifetime match that happened twice. But The Rock, in my opinion, though, he is truly the best talker of all time. And it speaks for itself, the fact that he's like one of the highest paid actors in Hollywood. I think at one point he was the highest paid actor in all of Hollywood, and everything that he's done. You know, he's just a super charismatic dude that can't be touched on that microphone. Now, in the ring, he's serviceable at best. In the ring, he's a good worker, you know, but he's not, you know, he's no Kurt Angle, he's no Bret Hart, you know what I mean? But The Rock is the best talker of all time, in my opinion, and he's decent in the ring. At number 4, what? Stone Cold Steve Austin. Give me a hell yeah if he's one of your favorites. Obviously, Stone Cold, I'm pretty sure it's been said that Stone Cold has broken records in live gates, in TV ratings. I mean, you know, it goes like this. It's Hulk Hogan, and then it's Stone Cold, then Hulk Hogan, then The Rock. I think Stone Cold surpassed Hulk Hogan in breaking records as far as TV ratings and live gates and stuff. Now, obviously, it's kind of not fair to Hogan to do the rating, like TV rating stuff, because I don't even think like Monday Night Raw was a thing yet during Hogan's supremacy. But yeah, man, nonetheless, Stone Cold Steve Austin, he's one of the most popular acts of all time. And the difference that separates, you know, The Rock and Stone Cold, they're just made for each other, bro. That's Ali Frazier. That's, oh man, that's the Lakers and the Celtics. You know what I mean? Like that's a rivalry that's just, it's just made for each other. You know, the Barcelona Madrid. You know what I mean? Like that's that's The Rock and Stone Cold right there. Barcelona and Madrid. They're just two humongous franchises who came up at the exact same time in their primes and in an exciting turning point for the big company. You can't write a better Hollywood script. And the difference between The Rock and Stone Cold, and why Stone Cold is higher on my list, is that Stone Cold not only had the charisma, but he was also a damn good wrestler too. You know, there was actually a time, a lot of people don't know this, especially these Gen Z kids. A lot of people don't know this. Stone Cold was actually called the Ringmaster at one point. And they tried to book him as like this technical mat wrestler because he was that good and that skilled. So they tried to make a character out of it. Of course, that character was an utter failure because they didn't see the untapped potential that Stone Cold had as being himself, you know, just another layer of himself, you know, turned up a notch, turned up a few decibels. And once they allowed him to break free and become Stone Cold Steve Austin, the rest is history. The rest is history. So, obviously, Stone Cold's rivalry with Vince McMahon, easily one of the most entertaining rivalries of all time, if nothing else. That was that had you glued to the TV, man. I don't care how old you were, what you were doing. That was a channel changer, but making you change the channel to that, not away from it. But yeah, and Stone Cold and The Rock, that's a perfect rivalry, man. That'll never be duplicated. At number 3, the Nature Boy, Ric Flair. Now, let me just preface by saying that Ric Flair is pretty much on the majority of fans and wrestlers' number 1 spot of greatest of all time. Let's be honest here. Ric Flair is usually on everybody's number 1 spot because of his work ethic, his performance, his charisma. Ric Flair completely influenced this whole rap culture we got today, with dudes being braggadocious, you know what I'm saying, flossing, stunting, whatever you want to call it, with the gold chains, with the ice, with the cars, you know, the jet flying, limousine riding, kiss stealing, wheeling, dealing, son of a gun who can't hold them alligators down. Homeboy, that was all Rick, Mr. Flair, influencing hip-hop culture even. This is a man who is influential beyond pro wrestling, who has broken barriers. But when you talk pro wrestling, you see one of the best technicians, one of the best talkers, one of the flyest, one of the most flamboyant of all, if not the most flamboyant, the most dripped, the most stylish, Ric Flair, man. I mean, and you know what? If somebody comments in the comment section and tells me, bro, Ric Flair is the number 1. He's the GOAT, bro. I don't know what you have on your list, but Ric Flair is number 1. Guess what? I'm not even going to argue with you because I can't. You know, anybody who says Ric Flair is the greatest of all time, I cannot argue it because he most likely is. My opinion here on this list, these are some personal and emotional attachments to some of these guys, in particular the number 1 spot, which is gonna be controversial. But I want to say, before I get off of Ric Flair, I do want to say his retirement match, quote unquote, with Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 23, I think it was. No, WrestleMania 24. Yeah, over there in Orlando with Ric Flair. Ric Flair and Shawn Michaels, rather. That's one of the most special matches you will ever watch in your entire life. It just had all the ingredients, man. It had all the special ingredients in that pot. to make something tasty. It was special. I actually showed that match to my lady, to my fiance, and she broke in tears, man. She broke out in tears after the match. And Ric Flair is on that mat crying after Ric Flair pins him, you know, for the final time, his final match. And he's hugging his fan bams and everything. My old lady, she had tears in her eyes. I had tears in my eyes, even though I had already seen that a bunch of times already. That's the power of pro wrestling. That's the power of storytelling. And Ric Flair, man, what do you want me to say? But this is where it's gonna start getting controversial. Let's go to the number 2 spot in my GOATs list. Brock Lesnar, the Beast Incarnate, the Wrecking Ball. I mean, I don't even know. He needs more nicknames, bro, because one nickname don't do this man justice. Brock Lesnar, I'm gonna tell you right now. John Cena was asked who he thinks is the greatest wrestler of all time, and he named Brock Lesnar. That was like two or 3 years ago. And I can't argue with Cena either, bro, because Brock Lesnar, just come on. He is one of the greatest box office attractions of all time. He took Undertaker's streak, and it was believable whether people hated it or not. Everybody's gonna crucify it and say, oh, you know, Brock Lesnar didn't deserve it and this and that, but it was believable. Who do you think would win a real life fight between Brock Lesnar and Mark Calloway? No disrespect, but it's a genuine question. Who would win a real life fight between Brock Lesnar and The Undertaker? Okay, so Brock Lesnar is just a freaking beast, man. He is an otherworldly athlete. I don't know. I mean, doing shooting star presses, if you watch his early days in OVW, he's a genetic freak. You know, they used to call Scott Steiner the genetic freak. But Scott Steiner was built for show, not to go, like Triple H famously said. Brock Lesnar was built to go, and then some. Brock Lesnar is the kind of guy you create in a video game to be your main character and do all these superhero type shit. Brock Lesnar is that boy. He's a bad man. He's a real bad man. Collegiate champion in wrestling. I mean, the freak athlete. He was one time the UFC world champ and the WWE champion at the same time, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Or if not, he was close. You know, he was UFC champ not long before he won the WWE championship. I mean, just crazy career, man. His career speaks for itself. And that's, yeah, and he was always, you know, in this is probably kind of off topic to a degree, but when I would play the SmackDown games, you know, back in the day, like they had the SmackDown Shut Your Mouth and SmackDown Here Comes the Pain, bro. I would just spend hours beating up on jabronis with Brock Lesnar in those games, F5ing everybody, doing the muffler stretch submission on, on everybody, and suplexing everybody with Brock Lesnar, bro. And ain't nobody could do a damn thing about it. And that's how it is in real life. If Lesnar really wanted to, he could just shoot on everybody, bro, and nobody would be able to stop him or touch him. So that's that. But you want to talk about controversial? Hey, this is just my opinion. I'm not an expert by no means. You know, I don't know shit. Okay, let's just put it like that. Because my number one pick of the GOAT, the greatest of all time in this game we call pro wrestling, in my humble opinion, drum roll, Chris Jericho, the Ayatollah of rock and roller, Y2J, the Painmaker, the man with the list. I mean, you name it. All the different iterations, incarnations of Jericho. Bro, Chris Jericho is somebody that I watched tear it up with guys like Juvi the Juice Guerrera on WCW, Nitro, and Thunder. And he was a jobber, bro. Jericho jobbed out to Goldberg. And then I see him go on to debut in WWF and easily, undisputedly, the greatest wrestling debut of all time when Y2J debuted as the Millennium Man, having a mic duel with The Rock. And when you see his name pop out on that screen, Chris Jericho, the crowd goes bananas because they know this is somebody special that WCW just didn't know how to book. And then Chris Jericho, in a few short years from that time point, goes on to beat The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin, 2/3 of the biggest box office attractions of all time, in the same night, to become the first ever undisputed world champion in WWE. Now, when you look at that from a kayfabe perspective, listen, people, I know wrestling is fake. You don't have to tell me. Everybody and their grandma knows wrestling is a work. But whether you look at it in a kayfabe perspective or not, that is impressive. The fact that this dude who was a jobber in WCW, at best, he was a gatekeeper in the mid-card in WCW, at best case scenario. He goes on to another company and he beats 2/3 of the biggest box office attractions in the history of this business. The Rock and Stone Cold. Hulk Hogan is the third. That's the three-headed dragon right there of the biggest draws of all time. Hulk Hogan, The Rock, and Stone Cold. And Chris Jericho beat The Rock and Stone Cold in the same night to win the first ever undisputed championship. Now, again, whether you look at that from a kayfabe perspective or from a show perspective, that is still impressive that this guy climbed that ladder to be booked in such a scenario like that. That will never be duplicated again. Let me tell you something. Let me try to convey this message to you. What Chris Jericho did in 2001 by beating The Rock and Stone Cold in the same night to become the first ever undisputed champion, that would be the equivalent of somebody today, some jabroni today, beating Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar in the same night to become the Universal Heavyweight Champion of WWE. That would be that type of equivalent, just to give you some perspective. Any Zoomers out there listening, any Gen Z kids out there listening, imagine Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar getting beat by one man in the same night to crown a new champ. That's what Jericho did when he beat The Rock and Stone Cold. And no disrespect to Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar, but they're not even on the level of The Rock and Stone Cold were at that time. Let's be honest here. I mean, during that time, The Rock and Stone Cold segments, they were garnering like 7 million views on cable television, Those are numbers that WWE could only fantasize about today. You know what I mean? It was a different time, though, to be fair. But anyway, the point is, beyond that, that's an accomplishment that'll never be duplicated again. I'm gonna tell you right now. No matter if you want to look at how he did it or whatever, obviously, he was a heel and he did what he had to do. But just the fact that this guy was a jobber not too long ago in WCW, that's what people forget. That's what people don't think about. This dude was a jobber, bro, in WCW. And then he goes to WWE and in a few short years defeats 2/3 of the three-headed dragon, the biggest box office draws ever, to become. That would be like, let's say Wardlow. Let's say Wardlow today leaves AEW, goes to WWE, and beats Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar in the same night to become the Universal Champion. Let's say Wardlow did that. Because Wardlow's a jobber right now. He might as well be, the way he's been booked. You know what I mean? Let's say Dalton Castle. Motherfucking Dalton Castle. That's a better example, actually. That's a better example. Let's say like Dalton Castle went from AEW, jumped ship to WWE, and in 3 years beat Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar in the same night to become the Universal Champion. That's essentially what Chris Jericho did, dog. Y'all don't get it. And beyond that, my time is running out. I gotta close this out. This is a long episode, guys. Chris Jericho just reinvented himself and stayed relevant for decades and is still relevant today in his 50s. And he's still performing at a high level. And he's got his own cruise. He's got his own rock band. He's got his own podcast. He stays busy. He still puts on solid matches. And he's still relevant today. That's what separates him from everybody else. The work, the career of Chris Jericho, man. It's one of the best careers, one of the best runs in wrestling of all time. And the way he's kept himself relevant. This is somebody who's never hurt anybody. He's never injured nobody. And he himself has never had to go on the shelf for an extended period of time because he hurt himself. No, because he's always been a damn good performer and cautious and careful, even though he encapsulates all styles of wrestling from lucha libre, high flying, technical, submission. He could do it all. There is nothing that Chris Jericho can't do, essentially. And that is why he is my favorite personally, and I would put him down, in my opinion, truly, as the GOAT. The all-time great in professional wrestling. Thank you very much for joining me on the highlight reel, guys. Very long episode. I'm super happy to make it to 100 episodes. I couldn't do it without you. Thank you so much. Don't forget to wash your hands. Don't forget to wash your ass. Tip your waitresses, and please tip your Lyft drivers. And as I always say, live life on cruise control, because sometimes you get farther when you take it slow. Mouth.